Welcome. I'm Melva Persico. Come with me, meet new people, and share their experiences in this episode of Our Culture to the World. My guest today is Dion Glasgow-Douglas. Dion, please introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Dion Glasgow. I'm married to Douglas. I am a mother of 3 children, a wife for 26 years. I'm a teacher by profession, Spanish and French. And I went to the University of Guyana, and then I transferred here to SUNY New Paltz and finished my degree and my master's here in the United States. I'm also an avid gardener. I like nothing more than gardening. I'm an avid reader also. I am a work in progress, I would like to say. I'm working on my mental, my physical, everything at the same time. Yes, I think that's who I am.
Yes, we all works in progress. And yes, it was at the University of Guyana that I met you first. And she was an almost near perfect student. So of Spanish. Anyway, let's continue. But Dion, you didn't tell us about your storytelling. We're going to go into detail about that, but you're also a cultural storyteller. So I'm going to add that and we'll talk more about that as we go on. Yes. Now, as you mentioned, you moved from Guyana to the United States and to upstate New York. Yes, was that the first place we went to?
Yes, the first and only place that I've ever moved to is upstate New York. This is from Guyana, right here, just like that, plunged into this.
So why is it that you moved to the U.S.?
I moved because of marriage to this specific place, because my husband was living here, and he moved here because his father came from Jamaica to this place, and that's how it continues. Yeah.
So as you said, moving from Guyana, tropical Guyana, developing country, warm tropical developing country, to upstate New York. What was that like for you? Was there any kind of culture shock for you?
It was such an experience that changed my life. I don't even want to call it horrifying, but I must say that living in Guyana, to me, I lived in this cocoon. I didn't understand the wider world, the bigger world. I just know that, I have to go to school, go to church, live my life even as an adult. And then I came into this place where even the way you speak, you have to think about nuances, like what you're saying, what people are saying to you, all things that I didn't have to think about when I was living in Guyana. And I felt that this was a necessary move because it really helped me to face myself as a human being, to face my traumas, my difficulties, the issues that I've had in my life, everything that has happened to me. I only started facing those things when I moved from Guyana and I was in this new place and had to try and find an identity to be able to survive.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. And what did you have in your mind, before you came to the US, about what Americans were like or their culture? Did you have any kind of stereotypical views in your mind that now when you came, you saw it was different, or maybe that were confirmed by your moving here?
Exactly. You see, in Guyana, I watched the television, and I as I said before, I read a lot. So I was imagining this little house on the prairie with the picket fence, just a big yard space and just places to just run and play. And it was just, I don't know, just idyllic, like a paradise. That was the image I had in my mind. And when I came, I really realized that the fences were not physical, and there were not the kind of fences that I had in my mind. There were more the barriers, the the facing of myself as a Black woman, something that I didn't even have to think about, even thinking about myself as a dark-skinned Black woman. That was only something that I had to face here in the United States and not in Guyana. Because, for us, Black is standard,
Yes.
and you were just good like that.
Yes, exactly. And so how is it now for you adapting to this life, this new life?
I think that I had to sit back and decide what I am going to take as a part of my culture that would work for me as I look at everything. Do I change my accent to fit in more? Do I become friends with people even though I do not feel as if we're going to have an authentic relationship, but just so that I can fit in? There were some very deep questions that I had to ask myself and decide what was I going to take from this. At the same time, I was faced with, who am I really? Who are you? And I started answering those questions and I realized that, okay, how am I going to define myself? Who am I? Other than what the world is seeing and the world is throwing on me, who am I in this new place? And what I love about the United States really is that you can come here and you can reinvent your story. You can change your story. You can, if you want, you can develop a totally new and different story and identity other than the one that you've had before. And I felt as if I was in that place of crisis where I had to decide, who am I? Who am I going to be? That's what confronted me all the time. And then I had to decide, okay, what am I going to adapt? What am I going to take? What will be too much for me to take? Who am I going to be in this new space? And I think that's where the journey really started. Not so much adapting to the culture, but finding myself.
Finding yourself, yes. Apart from the fact that, as you said, you have to, you were faced, you had this identity crisis of identity in a sense, and had to find yourself. Was there anything about life here that has really impacted you in addition to that?
Yes. When I came, I went back to school, and I was the only Black person in the classroom. And they were doing we were studying I think, U.S. history. And for the first time, I realized that the story I was told about African Americans was not the real story. And I sat in that class and I cried. I cried because, one, I, for the first time, got a glimpse at their struggles, at their culture, their way of trying to survive in the space that they found themselves. And I think that was my most impactful experience that really shifted my paradigm about African Americans in the United States and the work that they have done that allows me to be in the space that I'm now, or in the spaces that I'm able to occupy now in my life. I think that was the greatest experience. When I stepped into the classroom, there were some other experiences. Oh, when I stepped into the classroom, coming from Guyana, where all the children would just stand up and say, "Good morning, miss." And then I'll just take my hands and say, "Sit." And I came to this place where the students were not even acknowledging my presence. That was a little difficult.
You say good morning and they don't answer.
Exactly. Exactly. And I thought it was me for a while. I was like, why are they not answering me? Is it me? Is it something that in me? And then I had to realize that, this is the space that I'm in. And then once I was I was going to school and I saw this guy, he was driving his car, he was stopped. And I touched his car, you know, I'm just from Guyana. I'm like, oh, can you give me a drop to the bus shed? I just need to catch this bus. Can you? Who does that? The guy looked at me as if I was crazy. But you see, I am from a place and I didn't even realize that I was in a different space because I didn't shift mentally yet.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, and those are interesting experiences. And I like what when you mentioned about the African Americans. I remember, you know, when the first time I came to the U.S. And that was in the early '90s. I would say that, you know, it was hard for me to appreciate the situation of or the worldview or the outlook of African Americans. But then, you know, as I learned more, then I was able to see that, yes, the kind of struggles that they had were different from the ones we had in the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean, where after independence, well, even before independence, you know, but mostly after independence, the British went back and we were left to run our own show, however imperfectly.
Exactly.
And so we were used to, you know, the role models and, you know, the lawyers and the doctors and the leaders being people of color. So and, you know, as I learned more and I got to interact more, yes, then I was able to really start appreciating, you know, why they think the way they do and behave the way they do and so on. Yes. Okay. Yes. So Dion, you have lived here for over 20 years. And do you have any opportunities? Have you to share Guyanese culture with people that you interact with on a daily basis?
Yes, all the time. As I think first and foremost, as a teacher, when I step into the classroom, I bring all that with me, you know. All my perceptions are colored by where I came from. So when I stepped in there, sometimes I would be saying to the students, they might be calling me and I would say, just now, and then they want to know, like, what is just now? And then I always explain where I'm from and how that place has shaped me. Even among my colleagues also, sometimes they're fascinated by this culture, this place. Some of them are not even aware that there is a difference between Guyana and Ghana. And, you know, sometimes they get it mixed up. And then, especially on the church levels, I've had opportunities to share Guyanese culture. Every year, I get a chance to share and talk about our cultures all the time.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I even saw something where you were asking people in your community if they know Guyana and if they know anything about Guyana.
Yes.
A lot of them didn't even know where Guyana was.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's so true.
Yes, and I know that you have, I mentioned earlier that you are a cultural storyteller, and there's a special way in which you promote Guyana and Guyanese culture through your social media programs and cultural events. So I would like you to share that with us, please.
Yes. Well, our story got melody. I don't know if you know in Guyana, if somebody's telling you a story and the story is really juicy, the story is really sweet. We have this saying where we say, oh gosh, this story got melody, why? I don't know, have you ever heard that expression before?
Of course, of course.
Of course, yes. So it came from that. Our story got melody. That's the reasoning behind that. But in terms of telling our stories, that stemmed from the fact that I was tired. I was exhausted by the fact that I was doing so much for people back home and they were not being appreciative. So one day I sat down and I started telling the story of a Guyanese who welcomes her cousin home. And I started just picking up all the experiences that I've had, all the things that have happened to me. Everybody who had a dream and just wanted so much to make this dream become a reality. And I started doing that. And then that's how, I realized that, okay, this is not just my story. There are other people with whom this story resonates.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized that this story resonates with others, I said, this story has to be told. But prior to all of this, I was in a space where I was really feeling this weight on me. I don't know if it's the weight of my ancestors or what, but it was just something on me all the time that's saying to me, who is going to tell the stories? I felt as if we were buying a different culture, a more dominant culture, and we were not being appreciative of what our culture is. And this thing was just on me. Who's going to tell? We have to tell our stories. We have to capture all these things that make us who we are. And then the political climate really made me want to see. I was thinking, okay, what do we have in common? Is there anything that we have in common as Guyanese other than our political differences? So I was in this space with all of these. Then I was also faced with the fact that I grew up speaking standard English. Then I moved to a place where I was speaking Creolese. And then as an adult, I was using standard English to define myself as someone who has arrived. So there was this conflict, like, how do you go back to that when you're trying to show yourself as someone who speaks properly? And so I was just in a lot of conflict. And from all of this, that's where it came from.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about Our Story Got Melody. You tell the story, you tell your story and the story that resonates with others. And tell us about language, how language plays into that.
So I have to do a lot of research. Sometimes when people see Our Story, they think that, okay, I'm just there and I'm just doing the story. But what I do is I study. Every time I'm talking to someone, every time I'm especially when I'm in Guyana and people are talking, I have a book and I have a pen, and I'm always taking notes. I'm taking notes based on the way we communicate, the things that we say, the settings in which we say things, how we support conversation. What are some of the things that we say to show that we're actively listening to others? What are some of the things that we say to advise others? I just started really listening keenly to the way we communicate. And I started to see that we have a wealth of philosophy, a wealth of principles and everything. It was carried in this big bag, this big package that is called Creolese. And if you throw the Creolese away, you are throwing away one dirty build dam, mouth open story jump out, that can be your heart where your arm can't reach. How are you going to? And I realized, I said, wow, this is so rich. I really started paying attention to the language because I realized that our stories, there's such a major part of our stories that are just words, just the words we remember, words of our mothers, words of our grandmothers, just words. And the importance and the impact of the words that we were told. And I'm like, wow, this is rich. This is amazing. This has to be captured. So, it's really important. And I think everything is in the language. You cannot separate the language from the culture.
Exactly. It's an integral part. Yes. Our oral traditions. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to invite you now to share one of our pieces that you do on Our Story Got Melody with our viewers. Which one would you like to share with us?
All right. So I'm going to do a piece that is called Austrian Guyana, and I'm just going to go from, just like that with this piece. Austrian Guyana came from, do you want me to explain it or just do it? And
yeah, you could explain it a little bit. Yeah,
so
briefly.
I wanted to tell Guyana's story. I'm always thinking about how to tell the story. I'm always thinking about how do I tell the story? And I wanted to tell Guyana's story as if she is a person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel as if so many people were thinking that she only belongs to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I want them to see that she was like this woman who will be, she's so much bigger than all of us. And we come through her, but we will go and she will still be here. And the way we treat her will determine what she'll be able to give to those who come after. So that was where this was coming from. All right, so let's go. Hey, Dato, you're looking good, I like your band. Hey, I will give you a 10. I give you a 10 for regions administrative. Yeah. Well, let me tell you, I'm going to give you a 4 for natural. Because it's not you, it's Atlantic. What happened? Every time she just makes up and just she wave them over you. But girl, no, let me tell you, I watch you, girl. You just open your coca dab, girl. You're good, You're really good. I like your shape, I like how you come out so by Atlantic and you've got over so by Venezuela. Look how you talking yourself by Suriname, and then you come out so by Brazil, girl. Look at you. Hey, let me tell you something. I like you bad, but let me tell you, sometimes you don't treat me good, Sometimes you just only call me when you need remittance. Only then I say from you is be like, hey, let me get a towel now. Let me get a 200 now. Only then I just hear from you. And I just watch how you just treat me when I come. I just gotta go in the visitors. You always, why you gotta put a barrier between me and you? Why I can't come and there in the residence? Why I can't stand up over there? And every time I come by you, anything I want to do, you take long fast to me, girl. Look, the last time when I tried to renew my passport, I come by you, I go call. It's 2 weeks you take before you answer me. Why you treating me so? It's not me you gotta treat so. It's the man. Yes. Hey, don't go there. It's not me said oh. Somebody come and ask me. They ask me, they say, it's how much children Guyana got? I said, she got 6 children. Here they say it's for 6 different men. I said, yes, it's 6 children for 6 different men. And here they say, I said, well, let me tell you something, girl. If you hear what they're telling me, but I tell them, I said, let me tell you. I tell them I'm going to tell you, all of them is your belly picnic. And let nobody come to you and tell you that you got to show favoritism. You hear me? Treat all your picnic them the same way. All of them is your own girl. Yes, and let me tell you, anytime you see a man come to you and he tell you he want there with you, like he want all you want, and he gonna carry you here and there and to all the other places, hey, why you asking? What are you gonna do for your children? Because they just know if a man really like you or not. Ask you what you gonna do for your children, them girl. And if you could ask you that, then you're gonna know if the man like you or not. You're looking highly though, I hear you get, I love girl. What you say? That wasn't me. That was not me. That was them though. Them is the one who would tell me when we used to sing the song for you. Remember the song? The national song? They was the one who tell me for say, onward, upward, Mary had a goat. And day by day, she tied it with a rope till at length the goat bust the rope and Miss Mary had to run behind it. It's not me, so I want you to forgive me because I know that what I should really say is onward, upward, may we ever go. Day by day in strength and beauty grow till at length, yes, each of us, yes, you too, each of us will show what Guyana's sons and daughters can be. I like your body, you know. Let me tell you something. You is Molly Biscuit. And you know who is me? I is Boom Boom Cheese Girl. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. So that was Dion, the hustle in Guyana. So, and note she used our Guyanese Creoles and a lot of the terms and the some of the expressions that you use and it's are very unique and some of our sayings to Guyana. So a beautiful way of sharing our culture. And of course, you can watch Dion's stories on We Story Got Melody on YouTube, and she's on Facebook and Instagram. We're going to share all that information. And Dion, you know, you mentioned at the beginning that you have 3 children. And I am impressed with the fact that your children who were born and raised in the US, the way in which you help them, you help to immerse them in Guyanese life and culture. So could you share that with us?
Yes, from the very beginning, even prior to having children, I really wanted them to know my story, because my story is really a story of abject poverty and I'm trying to triumph over difficulties. And I wanted them to understand that. And the way that I think I could have done that was by putting them not in all of the situations or all of the circumstances that I have gone through, but to give them a glimpse of what life was like. So what I do, since they were very little, I would take them to Guyana, and when it would rain, I would just put them in their underwear and tell them to go out in the rain and run and play in the rain and play in the mud. So from the time, and we always go to Guyana, and when they go there, I would just let them be. Perhaps I was trying to recapture my own childhood, and I would let them be. And I would, tell them that we have this language, and when they speak it, I would say, wow, you've just code switched into my language, letting them know that they are speaking a different language, and just allowing them to get that part of my culture, because not only because it was important for me, but I think it's important for them. Even as I'm Guyanese, my husband is Jamaican, and they were born in the United States. And I know that when you're a first generation American with parents who might not be from the United States, you yourself, you can go through a kind of crisis if you don't know who you are. So I was really trying to help them to develop an identity. Like, this is a part of who you are. So it was multi-tiered to get them involved in the culture.
Yes, I see, because there's the part of your storytelling part of the program, and they hear them sometimes. Actually, they know, they would say it, you would quiz them and ask them things, and they would say it, and then they even, as you mentioned, say things in Creolese and so on. So that's really good, because as you say, this whole question of who am I and identity, and there's so many who as we said, from the time they get to the airport, they lose they lose the Guyanese accent, and they, and I'm amazed. I've met people who have Guyanese experience who have never gone to Guyana, and it always baffles me. Wow, how could you, and and these are adults. These are adults, never. So I think it's really beautiful what you have done and what you continue to do with your children.
Thank you.
So now, how is it though that living away from Guyana, how has that continued to impact your life and your current experiences as an educator?
I live in a place of continual yearning. And I know that what I yearn for is a reality that does not even exist. And when I say that, I mean that I always, like I write poetry also. And there's this poem that I write that's called The Return. And it was about me sitting in a classroom here in the United States, waiting to go home, but not to my literal home here, but to go back home where I can experience again the waves and really eat a decent mango with the juice running down my hands and just being in a space where I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to be pointed out or people just notice my accent and say, "Oh, where are you from?"
Mm-hmm.
There is a comfort, a I lose myself when I'm in Guyana. And even though I live here, I am always, I like to say that I live in Guyana also, because I'm always in this space. I'm always in a space of, I don't know if it's discomfort, but like disconnect when I'm here. I'm okay. I'm mentally, physically okay. I'm working on me and everything, but there's just this disconnect. And I was trying to find, why is this so? And I realized it's the earth, it's the ground. I do not feel at one with the earth. I don't know how to explain it, but I do gardening. And when I'm in Guyana, I know the consistency of the mud that I'm dealing with. I've lived with it all my life. I know what it feels like when my foot sinks into a trench and I have to pull it out back. And I cannot connect. I cannot connect to the ground here. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else to say, but that is where I exist, in this place where I'm always yearning for there. I'm always dreaming about there. I'm always planning to be there while I go through the motions of doing what I can so that I can be there again.
Yes, I understand. And what you have said, I'm sure it would resonate with most of us immigrants. You know, we live, it's like this in-between space, this margin. And I remember speaking to a friend in one of the early interviews, and she said, you know, when she goes home, she's like, oh, home, you know. And I was home a few weeks ago. It was a short visit, just a few days for some business. And I texted her and I said, Lynette, I'm home. And I remember, I don't even think she had remembered. I remember what you said. I said, I'm letting out that sigh, home. You know, and I was determined that for those few days, I wasn't going to let anything irritate me. I was just going to savor.
Yes.
Even having to wait long to get into the bank and whatever, I wasn't going to let any of that irritate me. I was home and I was just going to savor those days and whatever I had to experience there.
True. You know, I had an experience. I was in a minibus and this boy came into the minibus and he said, "Good afternoon, everybody." And I started crying. It's like, oh my gosh, I miss that. I miss someone just entering a bus and saying, "Good afternoon, everybody." It was so touching. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And people, that's Guyanese life and culture. we greet people. We say, hey, we always say good morning and good afternoon, even to strangers.
Yes.
Yes. So that's an aspect of our culture. Yes. So are there any other lessons? You've shared so much with us today, Dion? Any other lessons that you've learned from living abroad that you'd like to share?
Yes, I think what I would say is work on you. Work on yourself. When you, especially when you find yourself in a space where you're confronted by you, all of you, your the beautiful parts, the parts that are not so nice, the parts that you don't want to face, the parts that you want to deny, get to a place where you can work on yourself. And sometimes that might include changing the way you tell your stories. That is one of the things that I had to do. I had all these stories of all the things that have happened to me as a child. And the only difference with our story is that I choose to tell the stories from a place of triumph rather than a place of defeat. They are the same stories, but I just shifted the way I tell the stories, and that has made all the difference.
Yes. And so as we wrap up, I'm so happy that we had this time together, Dion. But what are your final thoughts, though, on the importance of appreciating other cultures? Because you share your culture, but you also, interact with other cultures. And what do you think about the importance of doing so?
I think that it is significantly important that cultures are preserved. And I am always fascinated by people and their stories. I love to hear people's stories, especially when they're not living in, when they're accepting the stories, when they're living their stories. I am always in awe. I'm always there. I want to, if I can help somebody in accepting and preserving and owning their stories, I would do that, because I think that we all have something that is so beautifully unique, and we must guard it. Guard it from what? From the cultures that are so overpowering, and they will just subtly steal who you are from you, even without you even knowing that you have something so precious. And you will start denying it, and you will start seeing it as nothing, as not important. You have to guard it from, how do I say this? From the higher, the higher powers, the
Cultural
colonial
imperialism.
powers.
Yeah, there's so much cultural imperialism. We have to be careful, and it's
Yes,
taking over.
that's exactly. Mhm.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Thank you so much, Dion. Yes, very well said. I I love the whole look. Beautiful. You got most of our colors there. There's some blue in there, but most of the colors of Guyana there, the red and the yellow and the black and the white and the green, it's all there. So thank you for spending time with us today, Dion.
It is my
And
pleasure.
yes, really enjoyed talking with you and sharing with you. And people, our story got melody. It's a beautiful, beautiful stories. You're gonna learn a whole lot about Guyana. But there was one thing I forgot to ask you, and I'm gonna just ask you quickly before we wrap up, because I know in your storytelling, it's not just for Guyanese, because I've seen some comments and I realized that your story reaches beyond the shores of Guyana. So we kind of have to circle back and talk about that. What is the reach of your programs, and what kind of feedback have you received from people in different parts
I
of the
mean,
world?
man, I'm telling you, it's Guyana, it's the Caribbean, it's people who are not, even Europe. Last week, I was in a classroom in Sweden, And I was just, they were studying one of my pieces that's called, what's that one called? It's about our culture. When I said B culture is this and B culture is that, that was a part of their classroom study in this Swedish school. And I went into the classroom virtually, and I was reading some of the poems that they wrote in response to my piece. And I was just giving them feedback on it. And then even from different countries, people who are not Guyanese, they would say, I'm looking for something, I'm looking for Guyanese Creole, I'm looking for something, and I came up you, can you give me some information? And you know, it has really, even England, all around the world, there are people who are, you know, becoming interested in the culture. But what I love the most is that even though I'm getting a lot of I would not call it hate, I would just say they are my teachers and they're revealing to me how they feel about their culture. They're just in the minority. There's so many Guyanese who are saying to me, because of you, I'm really looking at my Guyanese culture differently. I'm really seeing my stories differently. I'm starting to feel proud about Guyanese Creole. And that's the impact. That's what I want. I want for people to realize that we have our own story. And not our story, our stories, you know, because I'm sure you've heard about the danger of a single story. And we have a multitude of stories, and they're all worth telling. So for me, even though the world says all of this, I am so happy when one Guyanese says to me, I am looking at Creoles differently. Yes. It is beautiful and I love it. That for me is the best.
Yes. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Okay, Dion. Thanks again. And to the viewers, thank you for watching. And come again. View upcoming episodes of Our Culture to the World. We're going to meet new people and share their experiences as we take our culture to the world. Thank you, Dion. Bye.
Bye.